There will be war and anarchy over bags of chips. I see it. All right, hey, how many of you came to JVOX Unplugged? Who is here at JVOX Unplugged? The last one we did. Okay, now here's the deal. If you were at JVOX Unplugged, you remember I told a story about getting in trouble. You guys remember that? Okay, and I told a story about that when I was in middle school, I thought it was a good idea to bring a dagger to a JVOX trip. And I need you to know that you can't hide a large dagger in your pants in JVOX except for right now. I literally brought it, ladies and gentlemen. This dagger I hid in my pants at a JVOX camp until this part fell on the ground, and then I got in trouble. So here's the deal. Do not bring a dagger to JVOX. That's rule number one. Rule number one. What? Is it? Oh, but I love it. All right. Bye, headset. Now, that's rule number one. Don't bring a dagger to JVOX. Rule number two, boys, make eye contact with me. None of you touch this, okay? That's all I'm asking. None of you. All right. Now, it is appropriate, though, because today we are talking about war. If you have a Bible, go with me to Psalms chapter 60. Now, here's the deal. Thank you. My wife's going to take that so none of you have the urge to come up during worship and just cop a sword. Okay, so anyway. All right, now here's the deal. Psalms chapter 60, we're in a series called Summer Songs where we're looking at songs in the Bible that were really prayed or really sung by people, specifically a guy named David, when something was happening in his life. And the goal of this is that as we look at the stories of things that happened to David, that you might go, oh, you know what? If I'm in a similar situation, this is how I can talk to God. Now, I imagine most of us won't be in the same situation that David is in this story. But real quick, how many of you have ever played a game or you were in some kind of situation in life that you knew you were going to lose? You just absolutely knew you were going down. You were like, this is it. So when I was in 8th grade, my school introduced for the very first time boys volleyball. So before my year, they did not offer boys volleyball. You could only play basketball or soccer. And then they added the third boys sport, boys volleyball. And I was like, I'm in. I'm in for this. Let's do this. So I signed up for boys volleyball. And I'll tell you this was amazing because I was not good at basketball by any means. Basketball was not my sport. We knew from an early age that I was not getting any taller. Basketball was not going to be it, okay? Soccer, I was a terrible runner. My fastest mile ever is still the record I had in middle school, and it's not fast. So I knew that soccer was not my sport either. But volleyball, I don't have to run anywhere. I can stay in one spot. I get to be short. It's the perfect sport for me. So I signed up for boys volleyball 8th grade year, and guess what? I was actually good at boys volleyball. In fact, I made it to team captain. I was team captain for my volleyball team of a team that won absolutely 0 games the entire season. We won 0 games of our entire season. In fact, every single game, we would go out there. And you know what's I don't know if you know this. Here's how volleyball is played. When you go out, you play 3 matches, right? You're trying to play like best of 3, okay? So if the one team wins the first game, but they lose the second game, you play a third one, right? And so you're playing to try to get best of 3. And so what was so frustrating to me was that every single first game, I would go out with the first string team. And we would play the very first game, and we would win. And then the second game, we would put in the second string team, and we would lose. And then the third game, our coach would mix us, and we still lost. And so there was this moment that every single game, we're trying to like psych ourselves up like, we got it this time. And you just lose and lose and lose and lose. And by the end of the season, you get to a point where you're like, we're going to lose today, all right? So let's just go out there and make fools of ourselves. That's not fun. It's not fun when you feel like you're going to lose over and over again. It's not fun when you feel like you're going down. In fact, it hurts your pride a bit, right? It hurts. And sometimes, even worse than that, you just start to feel overwhelmed. When I think about times that I was overwhelmed, I think of a few times in my life that really just felt super big. So I know that you guys just lived through Hurricane Ian, but when I was a little older than your age, Florida had another hurricane come through called Hurricane Charlie. And don't worry, none of you were alive. But when I was a little older than you, we had a hurricane that was just as rough. We lost power for days. I remember just being like, oh my goodness, how do we live without electricity? How do you live without water? This is crazy. I remember being in high school, and I took some college classes when I was in high school. And I remember one day in particular that I was taking college chemistry and college history and college English, and it was a Saturday that I was already on 6 hours of homework with no end in sight. Okay, so it's a Saturday, I'm sitting there, I've done 6 hours of homework, and I haven't finished one subject. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do here. Like, I just remember this moment of just being like, oh my gosh, I'm losing. I'm going down. I'm going down. There are these moments that maybe you've had in your life that you just feel overwhelmed. In fact, the worst grade I ever got in school until college was in 7th grade. 7th grade health class. I got a terrible, terrible report card grade. And I was like, this has never happened to me. I was a genius in elementary school. What happened? Like, there was just this moment where life just got harder than it had been. And I remember feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm losing. Now, here's the deal. I hear you. Now, David is the guy that we've been talking about this entire series. If you don't know him, he's the king of Israel now. So at this point in time, this story, he's the king of Israel. Saul is no longer the king. That's good news because we've been talking about David running from Saul this whole series. Saul's been trying to get him. Saul's dead, okay? Saul's dead. David's king. We've moved on. But David hears that there's an enemy nation to the north of David. Do you guys know what north is? It's up. Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. All right. Yep, there we go. Not like up in the sky. Gosh, okay, anyway. But here's the deal. There's an enemy nation called Aram to the north of Israel. And David finds out that their biggest army, instead of hanging out to the south and trying to attack Israel, their army went north to fight another country called Zobah. And that's a great country name. If any of you get the chance to plant a flag and name your own country, I recommend Zobah. You could call yourself the Zobahites. That's a great name, okay? All right, anyway, moving on. So David goes, wait, these guys to the north of us, we can make our country bigger. Now, he wasn't necessarily supposed to make his country bigger to the north. God had not told him to do that far north. But David decides to go to war to the north. So he declares war on Aram, and he thinks he's going to surprise him, right? So he goes north to try to surprise his enemy, and he brings his army to attack, except that when he goes and takes his whole army north, the country Edom in the south comes and attacks him. But here's the deal. He's taken his whole army to the north. And I don't know if you can recognize, but like, he can't just get his whole army on planes. There are no cars. He doesn't have enough horses even. Like, they don't, like, think about this. It's not even like they can be like, all right, army, everybody get on horses and donkeys. We ride south. No. They have to walk. 40,000 people have to walk across the entire country if they're going to try to defend themselves. That doesn't work, right? So David, he starts going north to fight, and then he hears word, oh no, we just got attacked to the south. Now it's at this moment that David has to go, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose. Like, even if I win up north here, we're going to lose down south. We're going to lose. We're going down. The ship is failing. We're sinking. This is it. Okay, so he starts to fight in the north. The south, Edom is coming to fight them. And as he's fighting, the country Aram to the north, they have enough money to hire another country's army to join them. So while David is fighting to the north, another country sends like 30,000 troops to help fight against David. So if you thought like, oh, David's in a pickle, he's in a worse pickle. Full vinegar. He's in trouble. If you didn't know, the way pickles are made is you stick cucumbers in vinegar. You're welcome. Okay, so anyway, you were like, I hate cucumbers. Really? Yes. Okay. But here's the deal. David is overwhelmingly in trouble. He's fighting in the north. He's being attacked in the south. A second army is joining the army in the north. And he's going to get jacked up. But here's what he does. Like, can you imagine a scarier moment? Like, the pressure is on. And you can imagine that at this moment, David knows, I'm going to lose. Like, this is the moment that David just recognizes, I'm losing. I don't know how to win this. We're going down. Have you ever been there? I mean, maybe it's something as silly as like you're playing a board game and you're like, nope, we're losing. We're losing. And you start to sabotage the game. Have you ever done that? Don't do that. It's not fun. All right. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. David knows he's going down, but he cries out to the Lord. He cries out to God. He sings to God. He prays to God because, understand this, he knows that the only one who can help him is God. He knows that without God, there is absolutely nothing he can do. There will be situations and moments in your life that you go, I'm losing, and I don't have a way to win. I don't have a way to get out of this. I'm overwhelmed, and the only solution, JVOX, the only solution is God's help. And so in Psalm chapter 60, I'm actually just going to read you the heading, because here's what happens. In Psalm 60, it says this. It's for the choir director, which means this is a worship song. It's a psalm of David, useful for teaching, regarding the time David fought Aram Naharaim and Aram Zobah, and Joab returned and killed 12,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt, to be sung to the tune Lily of the Testimony. Now, here's the deal. I have no idea what Lily of the Testimony sounds like. I would encourage you to make it up at your table. I think that's a good idea. Anyway, but here's the deal. David wrote Psalm 60, and he prayed it, and he invited people to worship with him. And when they prayed and they worshiped, God answered their prayer, and they won. Like here's the deal. The psalm goes, hey, do you remember the time that we were fighting two armies to the north and an army to the south? And what happened was David won and Joab beat the guys in the south. And like there was no chance we were going to win. But we prayed and we asked God and God showed up. Would you guys be interested in knowing what David prayed to win? I think it would be incredible. But before we jump into the psalm, I want us to take some time in our tag groups and talk about a few things. So we're going to break. We're going to pause. I want you to talk through some tag questions, and then we'll be back. So what did you guys think? What do you guys think David would have prayed in something like this? What do you guys, anybody have an idea what you think David might have, yeah. Yeah, he prayed for God's help to survive the journey. Don't die. Yeah, good. Those are solid. All right, so let's look at this. Psalms chapter 60. Let's hear the actual song. It says this. It might be a little different than what you may have thought. It goes like this. You have rejected us, O God, and broken our defenses. You've been angry with us. Now restore us to your favor. Verse 4 says this. You have raised a banner, but you have raised a banner for those who fear you, a rallying point in the face of attack. So here's what happens. David begins and he goes, God, are you mad at us? Is there something that we've done wrong? Now, I remember a point when I was your age that my parents were really, really, really healthy. My parents loved eating health food. We only shopped at health food stores. And my parents were very strict about the food that I ate. And there was one time that I went to my grandma's house, and all bets were off. And I ate so much candy. In fact, I ate so much candy that I got sick. I ate so much candy that I made myself sick. And can I tell you, I had this moment with Jesus that day because I remember feeling so sick, like I'm holding my stomach, and I'm like, God, if you take this away, I'll never eat candy again. Right? Like I was it wasn't true, correct. But in that moment, I felt like I was like, God, are you mad at me? Ah! Now this is this moment. Now I think this is a moment that I think is kind of important, where David just goes, God, if you're mad at us, we can't survive your anger. If you're against us, God, then we can't win. Now here's the deal. Sometimes in life, bad stuff just happens. And it happens for a number of reasons, right? Like Hurricane Ian happened, and that was pretty stressful for a lot of people. And I imagine that not a single one of you is responsible for Hurricane Ian. Like, I imagine, except for McKenna. McKenna somehow started a hurricane in the middle of the Atlantic, and she is responsible. And so all of that stress that all of you face, no, right? No, that just happened. Sometimes Sometimes the stress or the anxiety or the loss we face is because of an accident that happened. Like I get stressed out. Like my daughter broke glass the other week. She just like she's innocent. She's 1 year old. She picked up a glass Tupperware, and I was like, what is she doing with it? Shattered it everywhere. Okay. Now that's stressful, but that's an accident. Okay. Sometimes the anxiety and the stress and the overwhelm and the feeling of loss, sometimes that comes because somebody else did something wrong. And you might actually face a consequence of somebody else doing something wrong. But there are some times, not all the time, there are some times that the situation that you're in is because of something that you did wrong. You ever been there? Like you did something wrong, and then you find yourself sitting in the consequence going, uh-oh, what have I done? Like eating too much candy or bringing a sword to a JVOX event. Those are just off the top of my head. But here's the deal. In those moments, David, see, some different Bible thinkers think that what happened is David wasn't supposed to go north to fight, and he did anyway. And so his first prayer is, okay, God, if you're mad and we did something wrong, we're sorry. But God, he says this in verse 4, you've raised a banner for those who fear you, a rallying point in the face of attack. And he just says this, do you imagine a banner? Do you know what a banner is? Some of you don't know what a banner is. The Star-Spangled Banner? Yes. Now here's the deal. A banner is a large thing that sits really high that you can see from far away. You used it in a battle because imagine you go into battle and you start fighting in the battle. But when you're fighting in the battle, there's like people all around you. You can't see it. There's just chaos everywhere. And every once in a while, you're going to be in a battle and you're going to be like, wait, where is anything? Have you ever like jumped in a pool and you don't know which way is up and which way is down, right? Or have you ever been lost before? And you like get lost somewhere and you're like, wait, where am I? Now, here's the deal. Shh. There's been a couple times that I've been hiking in the woods, and not on purpose. Like, I've gotten off the trail. And that's terrifying. Because sometimes you're hiking and you can't tell what the natural trail is and am I supposed to go this way or this way? It's not really clear. And what I'm looking for to find my way is a banner, a marking, something that's up high that shows me, okay, this is it. This is where we go. See, a banner is this rallying point. And this is what David cries out, and he's like, God, I know that when I'm in trouble, if I look up, I can find you. God, I know that if I'm in trouble, I can look up, I can look above all the crazy, all the chaos, all the noise, all the trouble, all the problem, and I can see the banner. See, when you're in the middle of the battle, you can't see anything because everybody is right here fighting. You have to look up to see the banner. And David says, God, when we are in trouble, we look up to see you. Verse 5 says, now rescue your beloved people, answer us and save us by your power. He cries out to God. Verse 11, he says this, please help us against our enemies, for all human help is useless. With God's help, we will do mighty things, for he will trample down our foes. Here's what David does that I think is so important. When he's in the middle of a problem and he can't see out. It's not obvious how he gets out of this. It's not obvious to him how he wins. It's not obvious to him. It looks like he's going down. what he does is he says, God, I look up, and I look to you, help us. I don't know a human solution here. I don't know that I can do anything without you helping. And there's going to be moments in your life, JVOX, that you have to cry out to God. That you need to cry out to God. Can you try to do it on your own? You can try. But you need God. All human help is useless here. David looks up and he sees the banner. Now here's what's interesting. David has to humble himself to pray this. Just think about this. David is the king. He's in charge. Everybody's looking to him. David is a king who's so famous that he has pop songs about him. I don't know if you knew this, but the Bible tells us that there was a really popular song in David's day that went like this. Saul has slain his thousands, but David his 10,000s, right? And it's a bop. Like everybody, it's in the top 10 every time. They're like everybody's performing this at the Grammys. It is the top song. Everybody loves this song, that David is an incredible fighter. He is 10 times better than the strongest guy you know. Can you imagine how David's got to feel? Because he's like, everybody's looking to him. David, what do we do? David, what do we do? David, how do we win? David's the guy who beats 10,000 people by himself. And David has to go, and he has to go in front of everybody and say, guys, we need to pray this together. I can't help you. I'm going to lose. Without God, I'm going down. We're going down. Without God, we can't do this. Guys, I'm not enough here. Human help is useless. David has to humble himself. And oftentimes, that's what God's looking for. When you're in a tough situation, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel anxious, God's looking for you and I to humble ourselves and say, God, I need you. And so here's what I want to do. I want to give us a moment. We're going to sing another song together. But before we do that, would everybody close your eyes? And I'm going to give you a few seconds, and I just want you to think about if there's anything in your life right now that just feels overwhelming. Anything in your life right now that just feels like, I can't get out of this. Take a few seconds and try to think of something like that in your world. What I want to encourage us to do is, as we sing another song of worship, if you would humble yourself, take that to God and say, God, I need your help. I tell you, he can do what no one else can. He's a God who rescues when no one else can. Now, I'm not saying that if you've done something bad that God's going to get you out of trouble. There might be consequences. But I am saying that God is a rescuer. And if you feel like you can only lose, God is your hope. And so, let's do this. Would everybody stand? I want to encourage you to find a place where you can pray and worship. And let's enter in.